Hey, this is K-Town. Welcome to another episode of Same Sex Dialogue. This episode is 19, The Fearless Trailblazer. Here we go.
Are you ready? Sit down and turn off the TV because it's time for the Same Sex Dialogue Podcast, where you'll hear the most entertaining discussions about gay topics, current events, and news. We bring you the very best of the LGBT community and its supporters. And guess what? Today we have a special guest just for you. Now here are your hosts, K-Town, and the super sexy fashionista herself, Kim Style.
Hey, it's Kim Style. Thanks for joining us tonight, and I know you'll be glad you did. We have a wonderful guest tonight, Peter Tatchell.
Yes.
Gosh, I'm so excited about him.
Hey, we're fortunate to have him. We really, really are. I mean, he's extremely busy, and
he's in high demand for
yes,
sure.
He really is. We actually have had this interview planned for about 3 weeks, and there, we can't possibly talk about everything that he's actually involved in. So we're going to try to touch bases on a lot of it and give you some insight on what he does, why he does it.
Well, he's been an activist since like 1967.
Yes,
That's before I was born.
He's been in the game for a long time.
Yeah.
A long time.
That's why we called him the Trailblazer.
That's right. He is the Trailblazer.
Yeah,
we're so fortunate to have him.
Mm-hmm.
We really are. But we'll get to that interview momentarily. But I want to know, what have you been doing today?
Well, today I've been trying to breathe. Do I sound like the nanny all nasally?
You do. Yes, you do. I feel sorry for you, honey. I'm sorry.
It's hard to breathe when I have a head cold and it's all stuck up in there and I can't get it out.
I offer to get you some medicine. You're just so stubborn.
I'm actually ready to go stand on my head if that's what's going to help. I hate feeling bad. You know me, I'm energetic and I, bouncing off the walls all the time, but this has kicked my butt the last 2 days.
I'm going to get you some Mucinex, whether you like it or not.
No.
Yes, I am.
That'll dry my skin out, and then I'll look old.
It will not dry out. It will not dry out. I'm just going to get it for you.
We can't be looking old up in here. I'm
going to go get some Mucinex, whether you like it or not. You have to get better,
I'm
right?
getting better. I'm better than I was yesterday, you have to admit.
Yeah, you are.
I barely got out of bed yesterday.
Yeah, you are better. I felt really, really bad for you yesterday.
If I don't go to work, number one, I'm not good. And number two, if I barely get up out of bed.
I know.
Yeah.
We did manage to watch a couple of episodes, though, didn't we?
Of course. I can do that in the bed.
We watched a couple of episodes. We were so good.
On the edge of the bed.
I'm serious.
On pins and needles.
You know what? That's why when they do that mess like they did last night, and I'm yelling for some fish oil.
You need fish oil to calm your nerves down. You're going to need Xanax before this show is over. I'm serious.
This show it's something else.
Then we get to start How to Make a Murderer.
I know.
Is that the name of it? Or Making a Murderer?
Making a Murderer or something like that. But I'm going to watch it, but I know it's not going to have the surprises like, Revenge has.
We're going to have to get these out of the way before spring because I already have spring fever and we ain't, and I said ain't for emphasis, going to be stuck in the house in the spring.
No, we're not.
Out of this house.
I don't want to be stuck in the house either, honey. But it's been
so let's get
too
all
cold
these
to go
shows
out.
behind us so we can be doing stuff.
All right. We're going
helping
to do that.
people.
We're going to do that.
Doing interviews and stuff.
Yes, we'll still be doing this stuff.
This stuff.
What kind of email do you have for us today, if any?
Well, I picked a funny one because it's an issue I really, really want to talk about. Just so happened someone emailed us about our bloopers last week.
What?
Hold up, because I'm going to read it.
What is it?
Kyra T says, and it's directed towards me, imagine that. Kim, was that really you singing in the bloopers on your last show? I thought you said you could sing. LOL.
Yes, I can go in there. Yes, it was.
Hold up, Ninja. This is an email directed towards me.
Okay, all right. I'm be quiet.
Number one, never said I could sing.
I know, but I said you can sing.
You said I could sing.
You can sing.
And I said I can't sing. Don't listen to her. Don't listen
no,
to her.
You can sing. You just
have to say that. You have to say
no,
that.
No, you refuse
I can
to
withhold
do it
some
right.
very important things if you don't say I can sing. And if you don't say I'm pretty. I withhold very important things to you.
I've heard you, honey.
No.
I've heard you. You can't sing.
Even
but
Kyra,
that blooper was hilarious. And every time I hear it, I laugh.
Okay, can I also just say, Kyra, when we were recording that episode last week and our intro, I'm sitting here waiting on the intro to be done. First of all, we can't hear the intro. K-Town has it on her phone, and she is signaled when it's done. We can't hear it. So I could not hear the fact that she put on us as bloopers on the front end of our show. So I didn't know it until the middle of the show when she's telling you guys. That's when I knew I was acting a fool at the front end of our podcast.
It was a surprise for you, honey. It's all good. People
You're
like that.
You're the only one supposed to hear me
a
let
lot
loose
of people,
like that, though.
People have downloaded it thousands of times.
Unfortunately, and I'm sorry. I apologize ahead of time for that. Lord, I apologize.
It's okay. At least,
sorry for sniffling
but you know
in the
what?
mic.
It's okay, babe. You're sick, and don't worry about it. People liked that episode. Okay.
Oh,
they
it's
really
funny.
It is funny.
So, to answer your question, Kyra, yes, that was me, but no, I was not singing. I was acting a fool.
Yeah, you were. And I was too. We had a good time. Let's see what else is going on. When we were watching The Housewives,
Beverly Hills Housewives.
Lisa Rinna, if she ever listens to our podcast, I want her to just mind her business and quit saying people have housing crunchings.
Yeah, housing crunching. Shut your big fat lips, Lisa. Shut those big fat lips.
That's what Yolanda called it, housing crunchings.
Crunching
or,
housing.
Or munching crowsing. I don't have munching crowsing. I don't have crunching munching. She was saying all kinds of stuff.
That sounds like a cereal. I think that's a cereal. Munching crunching.
She was saying all kinds of stuff. She was so mad about that, though. She just couldn't get her bearings,
Well, it's offensive to
it is offensive.
Be sick and someone
It is offensive. It is offensive.
Say you have munching crunching disease. I don't like it when people say that about me either. Kim, I know you're not stopped up. You have munching crunching housing disease. Hold up while I sniff.
I'm done with you.
I can hardly breathe, seriously.
I know.
So if I talk too much,
I'm getting some Mucinex, and we're going to be done with that.
No.
Yes, we are.
What about you? Go ahead.
What about
Teresa?
Yeah, we seen Teresa's out of prison, and she still has no sense. Like she would pick up a book while she's in there.
What
did she say?
But she was all worried about She said she exercised 3 to 4 times a day.
Really?
And that she's going to vote for Donald Trump. She looks good, but she ain't smart.
She just confirmed what everybody was thinking. She doesn't have any sense. Oh yeah, and remember she said, something in prison went around, and when the rumor went around, it spread like
fireflies. And Andy Cohen said, "Do you mean like wildfire?" She said, "Oh yeah, is that what it's supposed to be?"
Pick up a book.
Poor girl.
It spread like fireflies. That was funny.
When she wrote her first recipe book, and she's talking. Now this is several years ago, and she's talking about the ingredients. In her recipes, she says ingredients. Poor girl.
It's all right.
Oh yeah.
We'll let her by with another pass. Yeah. But she said something else funny too. It was about she said somebody had not a hysterectomy, but it was something else she called it. She said they were talking about a hysterectomy, but she said she had a vasectomy.
She had a vasectomy?
Yeah, she said she had a vasectomy. That was like, you mean a hysterectomy? She's not bright at all. She really is
not bright. She's a, what is it? She's a couple of French fries short of a Happy Meal. And you always make fun of her forehead or non-existing forehead.
She doesn't have a forehead.
Her hairline comes like...
It meets her eyebrows.
There's like half inch between her eyebrows and her hairline.
It does. It's the funniest shit I've ever seen, honestly.
It's like a train wreck. We can't look away.
It really is. Anyway, we want to tell you that we do have more upcoming shows, some great shows, as a matter of fact. We have Kevin Hogan. We're going to be having his show. We're actually going to do it tonight live. And it's going to be, by the time this posts, of course, you won't be able to hear, but we just wanted you to know that he's going to be on the show. It will be out, probably have it out either later on tonight or Tuesday. And we do have Ernie Hoskins, who advocates for gay health. We'll have him on the 26th. And then our lineup for March, we're still filling up our calendar, but we will have that out next week and tell you who else is going to be on the show. We're going to have some great guests coming up and hope that you will continue to join us for that. You do not want to miss a word that Mr. Tatchell is going to be telling us, because he's an amazing man. You wouldn't believe all the things that he's endured in order to keep the LGBTI issues at the forefront. So he hasn't even hesitated to step on anybody's toes or sugarcoat anything in his life since deciding to pick up the torch and do this.
All for our rights. All for our rights. And not even just the LGBT. Also with the ladies in Iraq.
Oh, yeah.
Women's rights in Iraq. He has fought for them.
Yes, he has. And in several other countries where a lot of people be scared to even set foot in there. You know what I mean? So,
I mean, he's been arrested, he said, 200 to 300 times.
Yeah. You can read all about him at petertatchell.net. It's actually petertatchellfoundation.net. You can go there as well. But if you go to petertatchell.net, you can see his bio and all the things that he's involved in. So we're going to be having that interview now. So is there anything else you want to tell anybody, babe?
No, just that I'm so glad and so uber excited. Just about everything, actually. All of our guests, all of our interviews, all the people that we have got to connect with during this process. Yes. I mean, it's truly, truly amazing.
It is.
And I'm honored.
I'm very honored as well. So we're going to be bringing that interview to you now and hope that you enjoy it. And here it goes.
Peter Tatchell has been campaigning for human rights, democracy, LGBTQ freedom, and global justice since 1967. He is a member of the queer human rights group Outrage and the left wing of the Green Party. Through the Peter Tatchell Foundation, he campaigns for human rights in Britain and internationally.
And we're glad to have him here today.
Extremely glad. Thank you for joining us.
My pleasure and honor. I'm looking really forward to having a chat with you.
Awesome.
Well, you know what? We seen also, well, I was actually on Google, I seen that something came up for you today where you were you interviewed here in the last couple of days or so?
I've been interviewed by quite a few papers, yeah.
Oh, you have? Okay. Well, I seen something else came up for you, so you're a very, very busy man.
Yeah, thanks for giving us a minute of your time.
Mr. Tatchell, I wanted to ask you, can you share a little bit with us about the types of activism that you're involved in?
Well, I do a range of activism. I've been campaigning since 1967 when I was 15 years old, so I've been doing it for 49 years. I do a mix of LGBTI activism and also broader human rights campaigning, so supporting free speech, civil liberties, equality and non-discrimination for black and ethnic minority peoples, for women, the disabled, and so on. About half of this work is UK focused because I live in London, and about half of it is international. So it involves supporting human rights and democracy movements in countries like Russia, Iran, Uganda, Jamaica, and elsewhere.
Right. Okay. You currently reside in London, right?
That's correct.
But you're not originally from London, correct?
I was born in Melbourne, Australia in 1952, and I lived there until I was 19 in 1971.
Oh, okay. So, what age did you actually realize your sexuality?
I was a late developer. It wasn't until I was 17 in 1969. And very soon afterwards, I remember reading a report in a local newspaper. It was a very short news in brief saying that thousands of homosexuals marched through New York last night to demand civil rights. And I remember thinking to myself, wow, we need that here in Melbourne, Australia. We need it all over the world. So I then began my initial early campaigns for LGBT rights.
Okay. What exactly inspired you to become an activist? Was there a specific event?
Yeah.
Well, the earliest sort of human rights or political memory I've got is in 1963, at the age of 11, I remember reading about the bombing of a black church in Birmingham, Alabama, where 4 young girls about my own age were murdered by white racists.
Yes.
I thought to myself, as an 11-year-old boy in a faraway country, this is shocking.
Yeah.
How could anyone kill another human being, let alone 4 young girls in church on a Sunday morning?
Right.
So that prompted my interest in the Black Civil Rights Movement and the work of people like Martin Luther King and Stokely Carmichael. And it made me a lifelong anti-racist. But I didn't actually do a campaign myself until I was 15. In 1967, a prisoner who escaped from jail in Melbourne, Ronald Ryan, was due to hang for allegedly shooting dead a prison warder during his escape. Now, I read a summary of the autopsy report on the dead warder in a local newspaper, and it described the trajectory of the bullet through the warder's body. At the age of 15, I worked out from where the escaped prisoner Ronald Ryan was standing and where the warder was standing when he was shot, Ronald Ryan almost certainly could not have fired the fatal bullet.
Wow.
But when he was hanged anyway, and that destroyed my trust and confidence in the government, police, and courts. It made me a lifelong skeptic of authority.
Yeah.
I thought to myself, if they can do that, what else are they doing?
Yeah.
So I began to investigate the appalling mistreatment of the Indigenous First Australians, the Aboriginal people, and discovered horrendous human rights abuses. So I got involved in a campaign to support their struggle. I also started to learn about Australia's involvement alongside the United States in Vietnam and realized that was a very unjust, immoral war. So I got involved in a campaign to try and stop that war and to get Australia to withdraw. And it was only later, when I was 17, that I realized I was gay. That's when I began my LGBTI campaigning.
Okay. And it's obvious you've faced many challenges of the things that we have read, and but what do you feel has been your most challenging aspect of being an activist?
I think it's really hard to identify any single campaign. I've done so many over so many years, and it would be very difficult to pick out one, but I would say that as a principle, one of the biggest challenges has been to maintain the perseverance and patience to see through a campaign to its end result. So if you take the struggle for LGBTI rights, at the age of 17, looking at the experience of African Americans, I concluded in my own little tiny mind that gay people were a persecuted, oppressed minority just like black people.
Yes.
And that we also had a claim, a just claim, for equality and social justice. I also looked at the experience of the black civil rights movement and calculated that, based on their experience, it would probably take about 50 years to win LGBTI equality in Western countries like Britain and the United States. So I was ready for the long haul. I knew we wouldn't get results overnight. I knew I would have to be very determined and patient, link up with other people, and build a coalition, an alliance to fight for equality. And that is what I have done. And over the last 49 years, gradually, slowly, progressively, in Britain, all the various anti-gay laws have been repealed. We now have near legal equality, and public attitudes have changed from being predominantly anti-gay to being mostly pro-gay. So that's a change that I have witnessed, but there were many times during this 49 years that I felt, demoralized and depressed. I thought about giving up because it seemed so hard. Politicians were just unwilling in the first 2 decades to even engage with LGBTI issues.
Right.
The universal reportage in the media was hostile and negative. I mean, in the 1970s, the only time you ever heard a mention of LGBTI people was if they were mass murderers, rapists, child sex abusers, or spies. There were no positive stories, and at that stage, there were none who were openly out as public figures. No well-known people were openly gay in public life in 1970 in Britain.
Right. What do you think is the biggest misconception about you?
A lot of people just see me as an LGBTI activist, whereas I have for all these nearly half a century, championed the cause of all human rights victims or human rights abuse victims. So I have, supported the struggle, for example, in Iran of women for equal rights, for the rights of trade unionists to be able to organize and defend their members' interests, and for the rights of Democrats, liberals, secularists, and left-wingers to stand for election and to be part of Iranian political life. That's an aspect of my work that's not much acknowledged or recognized. But that's fine. I don't do it for the sake of recognition. I do it to support the cause, and I feel really honored and privileged to be able to help and support a human rights activist in Iran.
Yeah. Oh my goodness.
We feel very fortunate to have you on our side. I'll tell you that. And you mentioned something about homophobia, but I was going to ask you, do you think homophobia is dying, or is outrage simply driving it underground?
I think there's a very strange countervailing tendency. If we take the global picture, in the last few years in about 20 countries, such as Brunei, Russia, Uganda, Nigeria, and so on, there has been an anti-LGBTI backlash with increasingly anti-LGBT rhetoric from politicians and religious leaders. In some cases, the introduction of new draconian anti-LGBTI laws. So in about 20 countries, things seem to be going in reverse. In fact, things are going in reverse. But in the other countries, mostly, the global trend is towards ever greater LGBTI acceptance and equality. So the global picture is predominantly positive. In terms of Britain, there's been a huge sea change. So, for example, in the late 1980s, 2/3 of the public said they believed that homosexuality was mostly or always wrong. Now that is down to just over 25%. And even then, although people may believe that, I think a much smaller percentage would actually be personally hostile or discriminatory towards LGBTI people. So homophobia in Britain is definitely on the wane, and it's also on the wane globally as well, although, of course, in most countries there's still a very, very long way to go.
Well, are you still seeing homophobic violence? And if so, what do you feel is fueling the violence towards LGBTI?
Well, even in relatively progressive Western countries that have, mostly or certainly better, less harsh anti-LGBTI laws, there is still homophobic prejudice and there is still homophobic violence. In Britain, for example, 1/3 of all LGBTI people have been victims of homophobic, biphobic, or transphobic hate crime. In our schools, 50% of LGBTI kids have been bullied at school, which may range from teasing and name-calling through to outright threats, harassment, and even actual physical violence. And that pattern is repeated across most Western countries, even despite formal legal equality in many of these states.
Right.
Still there is homophobic prejudice and hate crime. In terms of what fuels it, well, there's a whole variety of reasons. Some people are anti-LGBTI because they're just afraid of the unknown. Some have bought into the sort of bigoted nonsense about LGBTI people being pedophiles. There's a whole host of reasons. But one of them, of course, is the massive influence of religious organizations and institutions.
Absolutely.
Who preach intolerance.
Yes.
And that is not just in Britain and the United States, but also pretty much all over the world. The religious right is using homophobia to stir up hate and prejudice and to make out a case for why their stand is the right stand. And in some countries, and even in parts of Britain and the US, some people buy into that.
What benefit do you think the church brings to the LGBTI community, and how have your views changed over the years about the church?
Well, I think it depends what church you're talking about. If you're talking about liberal Judaism, the Metropolitan Community Church, the Unitarians or the Quakers, they have for many years been pro-LGBTI equality. They are, if you like, the good Christian voices, alongside people like Archbishop Desmond Tutu, who have defended and spoken out in support of LGBTI people. But of course, those are a minority.
Right.
So you have the Catholic Church, which has huge clout and political influence in many countries, still declaring in the catechism that homosexuality is wrong and using very disparaging, pejorative language. You have the official position of the Pope, who claims to be a liberal, but in reality he's excommunicated Catholic priests who supported the LGBTI community, and he's also on record as opposing same-sex marriage.
Okay.
So at the heart of the Catholic Church, the Pope himself is giving a platform and a sanction for anti-LGBTI prejudice.
Well, I've just learned something new for sure. Yeah.
You know what? I'm just curious to know, what do you think about, do you keep up with politics over here in the United States?
I do, yeah.
What do you think about Donald Trump?
Do you have to ask him?
I'm asking, what do you think about Donald Trump? Because he's very vocal in the fact that he doesn't like the progress that lesbians and gays have made in the United States. He's looking to reverse some of those things. What do you think about him?
I would sum up my views on Donald Trump in one word: scary.
Believe me, we're scared too, Peter.
If he became president, World War III would be on the cards.
I'm convinced.
His attitude to minorities, and particularly to Mexicans and other ethnic minorities, is really, really appalling from someone who is seeking to stand for the presidency of the United States,
right?
A nation which was founded in resistance to British imperialist oppression, and which is ostensibly committed to the principle that all are equal under the law. So Donald Trump and Ted Cruz and Mark Rubio, they're all scary characters, and they all make me very frightened for the future of the United States as a truly democratic and equal nation.
Yeah.
You're right. I just wanted to get your opinion on that.
Well, on a more serious note, do you think his hair is real?
I have no idea. His hair is scary.
Yes, it is. It is. But let me ask you this. For those that protest that sex between adults of the same gender is just morally unacceptable for them, and they don't believe that we should be able to marry, is that, to you, anti-gay?
Absolutely.
Yes.
If you don't support equal rights for black people, you're a racist.
Yes.
If you don't support equal rights for LGBTI people, you are homophobic as well.
Right.
Exactly.
We feel the same way. Now, I know that you protested in front of is it Dolce and Gabbana?
Dolce and Gabbana.
Dolce and Gabbana designer, but because of the inflammatory comments that were made, did anything ever come out of that?
Well, they did eventually row back on some of their extreme views against the fostering or adoption of children by same-sex couples. And in fact, in one of their recent shows, they have sort of sought to make amends, and they have made several statements expressing a much more inclusive, embracing attitude towards the wider LGBTI community, and in particular, the rights and welfare of parents and children in same-sex families. So that's good, but it probably wouldn't have happened if we and many others had not protested against them. So it does show, yet again, that protest works.
Right. We know that you do campaign for HIV awareness. Have you heard about the drug PrEP?
We do, yeah. We have that here in the UK.
Okay, what do you think about that drug?
Well, first of all, it's not widely available here. There's pressure to make it more widely available, but it isn't widely available. So people have to either buy it privately or get it over the internet. It's not easy. Now, my view is that PrEP is a good thing, but not an ideal thing.
Okay.
The idea that people go on permanent pre-infection medication to prevent infection, it is obviously going to have a positive impact in terms of stopping people getting infected and save their health and well-being. That's good. But the principle of someone being permanently medicated I think is quite dangerous, and we don't know for certain what the long-term effects might be. Probably it's totally safe in the long term. Mm-hmm. It seems so, but I don't think we can be absolutely sure. So my view is, if someone is at risk of HIV, mm-hmm. it is better they go on PrEP than not.
Right, absolutely. About your stance on outing people, you were very adamant about not doing that, but you have outed the bishops that we read about. Can you tell us the circumstances surrounding that and the reason, why you done that?
Well, initially, I did not favor outing. I thought it was wrong. But over a period of time, I debated and discussed with friends and colleagues, and then came around to the view that ethical outing could be justified. In other words, if someone is preaching in public against LGBTI people, but is themselves gay, bisexual, or transgender, then I think that makes them a legitimate target. Not because they're gay and in the closet, mm-hmm. but because they're homophobic and hypocritical.
Right. Yeah.
They're preaching one thing in public and doing something different in private. So that's why we named and outed 10 Anglican bishops, that is, bishops of the Church of England, in late 1994. They were preaching one thing and being or doing something different. We felt we had to call them out.
Okay.
And the positive effect was that, as far as I know, none of those bishops ever again said anything negative, in public at least, about gay people.
Yeah.
So that the strategy, the tactic did work.
That's great.
You basically shut them up.
That's right. And more than that, it actually prompted a crisis in the church, because, of course, it was very embarrassing for the Anglican Church, which is the British equivalent of your Episcopal Church. Mm-hmm. It was very embarrassing for them to be exposed about their hypocrisy and double standards. Mm-hmm. So what happened was, as well as those bishops not again speaking out against LGBTI rights, the Church of England hierarchy set up the first ever dialogue with the lesbian and gay Christian movement. Uh-huh. And subsequently, the House of Bishops issued one of their strongest ever condemnations of anti-LGBTI discrimination. Mm-hmm. Now, neither of those things would have happened if we'd not provoked a crisis by shaming the church and outing those bishops.
Right. Did you get any
So
back?
It was a positive outcome.
Yeah, and it was. I believe you were right for doing that, but did you get any backlash for doing that?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, I was denounced by politicians, church leaders in the media as, quote, a homosexual terrorist, a gay fascist, uh-huh. and many, many other nasty, unpleasant things. But I felt that I was doing the right thing.
Yeah.
These were public figures who were abusing their power and influence to harm other gay people. Of course, to us, it was quite simply queer self-defense. We were defending our community against those who are doing us harm.
Yeah.
That's a human right, to defend yourself.
Yeah. Well, what's funny is the things that I've read about you, I called you a homophobic punching bag.
Yeah, because...
for homophobics.
And you have endured a lot. Of just curious as to what kinds of dangers you've been confronted with since advocating.
Well, of course, my 49 years, I've been physically violently assaulted over 300 times.
Wow.
Including about 50 bricks and bottles through the windows of my flat, a bullet through the front door, 3 arson attempts, plus I've been subjected to a really major hate campaign by mostly the tabloid press, who have denounced me as an extremist because I defended the rights of LGBTI people. 20 or 30 years ago, that was regarded as extremist in this country.
Yeah.
Now it isn't. Now everybody says they support LGBTI rights. But back then, most of them didn't.
Exactly.
So, yeah, I've had all kinds of... in the course of my campaigning, I've been arrested 200 or 300 times.
Wow.
For simply protesting for LGBTI rights. I mean, when they had the state opening of Parliament in the 1990s, together with my colleagues from the LGBTI group Outrage, I stood outside Parliament and held up placards calling for LGBTI equality and law reform. Just simply for doing that, I was arrested.
Yeah.
There's been many, many other occasions when I've tried to shame and embarrass homophobes. I haven't attacked them, I haven't insulted them, I just called them out over their homophobia, and I've been arrested for, quote, disorderly behaviour, or behaviour likely to cause a breach of the peace, or public disorder.
Unbelievable.
Yeah. Definitely. Go ahead.
But I only have one standing conviction. Every other instance, either the charges were eventually dropped or I was acquitted.
Okay.
Okay. Well, you definitely blazed the trails for us, and it's not the way it used to be, thanks to you and people such as yourself. And everything.
That's a very important point. Yeah, it isn't just me. It is me and many, many others.
Yeah.
I mean, I do my bit, but so do tens of thousands of other LGBTI people and our straight friends and allies.
Right.
It's a cumulative, collective movement that has brought these changes to pass.
Absolutely. Everything you've just said about everything you've gone through and been arrested and being assaulted, what exactly inspires you to keep going? You're that passionate about human rights, aren't you?
I love other people.
Yeah?
I love justice, freedom, and equality. I want to see every human being on this planet to have dignity, respect, and equal rights. So that's my motive.
Mm-hmm.
To me, it's a motive of love. I love to see other people happy, content, without worries, without suffering. Some activists are motivated by anger, perhaps even hate, but not me. To me, it's all about love. Love, to me, is the beginning, the middle, and the end of any true, worthy liberation struggle.
So what campaign or campaigns are you most proud of, Peter?
It's really, really hard to put a finger on it, but I was very proud that I ambushed the British Prime Minister, Tony Blair, in a protest against the Iraq War, forcing his limousine to halt in the street. He nearly knocked me down, by the way.
Wow.
The car did stop. I'm proud of the 2 attempted citizens' arrests of the Zimbabwean dictator Robert Mugabe, to support the very brave, heroic human rights defenders in that country. It was a great honour to interrupt the Easter Sunday sermon of the then Archbishop of Canterbury, Dr. George Carey, in 1998, to protest of his support for homophobic discrimination. I was involved with Outrage in their big campaign to end police harassment of the LGBTI community in the early 1990s. And, we did succeed. Eventually, we forced the police to backtrack. I mean, we had to invade and occupy police stations, interrupt the press conferences of the police chiefs, and also we photographed and publicized police undercover agents who are operating to encourage gay men to commit crimes and then arresting them. So they were acting as ardent provocateurs. So we did all those things, and very, very quickly we won the battle of hearts and minds. You know, the public was outraged at the police were behaving in this way, arresting people for victimless, consenting behaviour between adults. So the police eventually called us back to headquarters, and despite some initial resistance, did eventually agree to implement 3/4 of our demands for a non-homophobic policing policy. Within 3 years of that campaign, the number of gay and bisexual men convicted for consenting behaviour fell by 2/3. Mm-hmm. The biggest, fastest fall ever recorded. Which not only saved many thousands of men from criminal convictions, but also often from the breakup of their marriages, the loss of their home and job, all the other knock-on negative effects that gay people who were arrested faced in those bad old days. So it's me and others. Together we've made the change.
Yes.
So if people want to know more, please go to my website.
Yeah, we're
Tatchell.net.
PeterTatchell.net. Okay.
There's an archive of my writings and campaigns there, which on a whole range of subjects, mostly LGBTI, but many other human rights issues as well. I think you'll find it really interesting. And if you want to, you can click on the Join Us button and sign up to receive the email bulletins. You'll be most welcome. It's all entirely free. So please, listeners, join us. Be a part of this small, organisation that we are, which has this global reach.
Yeah, we're definitely going to do that, aren't we?
Yes, we are. And before we go, I wanted to ask you one final question. What other global issues do you think that the LGBT community should keep their eye on in the near future?
You mean LGBTI issues or other non-LGBTI issues?
The LGBTI issues globally should we keep our eye on?
Well, of course, there is this escalating trend in many countries to pass new laws banning the so-called promotion of same-sex or what they call non-traditional sexual relations.
Uh-huh.
That law has been passed in Russia, but there's moves to pass it in Kyrgyzstan, Belarus, Crimea, and elsewhere. So it's a nasty, dangerous trend towards greater repression of the LGBTI community. And that's one thing. The second thing is we need to ensure that at the Rio Olympics that the Olympic organisers deliver on their promise to be more LGBTI friendly and inclusive.
Okay.
That didn't happen in London, despite our best efforts, or at any previous Olympics. We need to hold the International Olympic Committee to account. We need to make sure that they actually reflect and honour all the athletes and all the spectators.
Right.
Absolutely.
Good point.
It is, and Peter, we do appreciate your time to be on our show. We will absolutely stay in touch and would like to talk to you about other issues that arise in our community, and we hope that you will consider coming back sometime in the future. Would you do that?
Definitely. I'd be delighted. And,
awesome.
There's so many other things to talk about,
Yeah.
Malcolm X's bisexuality. There's a good story for you.
Well,
the time when I confronted Mike Tyson in Memphis, Tennessee.
Yeah.
Over his homophobia.
Yeah, we read about that, and that's why I said 30 minutes is just not enough with you.
It's not enough. And you know what, Peter, we actually have another interview with Mr. Kevin Hogan, who was a high-profile stigma survivor. Have you ever heard of him?
I don't think so, no.
No? You read about him. He is an amazing man, and we have an interview, and he's actually the head of Bisexual Resource Center, and he's been to Washington several times for a historic meeting with the president about that issue.
Mm-hmm. You can check him out at healingstigma.com, and we actually have an interview with him at 7 this evening. So, and he's very interesting, a human being. He and his wife both. So,
do you mind if
good luck with that? Good luck with that, and give him my best wishes.
Absolutely, we will.
We will. Peter, we hope you have a great day, and thank you for joining us on Same-Sex Dialogue.
Yes, thank you, Peter.
Thank you, and my warmest wishes to you and to all your listeners.
Awesome.
We are thousands of miles apart, but we are standing together in solidarity.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, sir, and you have yourself a great day.
Bye.
Bye.
That's the end of our show. Don't you dare leave without going to iTunes to subscribe and leave us a 5-star review. Ciao, baby.